I was told you were coming.
A slayer.
I'm so stuck, like a cork in a bottle.
My ascension is almost at hand.
I don't like vampires. I'll take a stand and say they're not good.
You're like a candle.
It's fucking
I
fantastic.
love that sound.
The ice cream bar's this way.
Welcome back, kids. This is Beer with Buffy. I'm Josh.
I'm Rex. Oh, I really need the beer for this one.
Holy fuck-a-doodle-doo. It's a good thing we're pre-liquored up.
So this is season 1, episode 4. I didn't even look up the fucking name of this episode.
You go ahead and look up the title of this episode, Rex, because I'm curious. Before I do our mom synopsis, which last episode, the mom synopsis literally happened to be almost exactly the same as the title of the episode. But yeah, Beer with Buffy, where we're gonna look back on an episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer with some nostalgia and a modern view, and, you know, an extra 15 years or so of life experience.
And in this episode, a lot of cringe.
Oh, the cringe.
So the episode is called Teacher's Pet.
Teacher's Pet.
Oh, it's bad.
It's good bad though. It's better good bad than the witch episode.
Okay, last episode was boring. This episode isn't boring, but it just...
I'm simultaneously so giddy to be doing this episode and also just happy that we're going to be done with it.
So it opens up on a dream sequence, which isn't immediately shown as a dream sequence, but the second that I notice Buffy's clothes and that she's in danger and Xander helps save her, I'm like, oh, look, it's a dream.
Enter nice guy Xander with his hero complex from hell.
Oh my god.
So they're at the bronze in his fantasy,
So
his daydream.
Yeah, it opens up on the bronze and there's a vampire there and Buffy is attempting to fight the vampire but not doing well and she's in trouble.
And
wearing an outfit that has definitely more cleavage than a 16-year-old girl should have.
Yeah, and very anti-characteristically, just...
She's in trouble.
She's wiffle balling it.
Yep. She's in trouble.
I'm being fought by a big man monster.
And, quote, tall, dark, and handsome Xander, end quote,
Yeah.
steps in and beats the vampire up and he falls to the ground and he's all super witty.
Come with me if you want to live.
And Buffy's like, oh, you've hurt your hand.
Yeah.
Are you going to be able to continue playing? Because he's in a band and he's going to be on stage.
I got this, baby. I got this.
And as he walks away, the vampire stands back up and he rips a chair leg off the chair and throws it at the vampire.
He just whiffs it like so effortlessly. It's like, I don't care how strong you are. There's no leverage.
And then he jumps up on stage and starts playing the electric guitar.
And this chair leg that looks like it's approximately the weight of a wiffle ball hits him in the chest, and he obviously, the vampire just grabs it and goes, oh, and falls backward, and we're even robbed of the moment of him turning to dust. We don't even get to see that. And
I think that's because Xander has not actually seen that ever in real life, and so he can't dream about it.
I feel like he did, but that's an excellent theory that we could look into later. So,
and then he plays the guitar, which, admittedly, they actually do a decent job of making it look like he's playing guitar.
And, you know, I mean, it's entirely possible that he does fake the guitar a little bit, or is even maybe in real life a fairly competent guitar player.
In the dream,
everybody plays
Buffy's
the
like,
fucking
hey,
guitar.
you're drooling, and he's like, what? And, oh, you're drooling, and he wakes up, they're in science class.
Yeah, they're in science class again.
But this teacher, so
before we get too far away from that, I do want to commend one little thing about that opening scene, and that's that at least, even though he had the hero complex and the, what did I call it, nice guy syndrome, at least
Yep.
he felt like he needed to do something to impress the lady. Never mind that in his imagination, she's way more helpless than she really is, which tells us he doesn't actually appreciate Buffy for whom she is.
No,
He's just got
definitely not.
a big teenager geek nice guy hard-on for her. She could really be anybody, but, you know, at least he doesn't think that he can brood in the corner and just get pity sex for it. So I'll give it that. That's about it, though.
Out of the gate, though, with this episode, I'm like, after the weirdness of Xander last episode, and then right into it with this episode,
He's got some redeeming to do.
oh my god, it's bad, guys. It's so bad.
Is this for me? I must be ready. I need my strength. Give me more! Night, I shall walk the earth. Hold on. You've got something in your eye.
But anyway, the dream's over,
Science class.
and we're in science class, and there's this lovely little bit where the teacher is standing with his back to Willow and asking Buffy questions, and Willow's miming behind the teacher to like give Buffy the answers.
The answer to the question, how do ants communicate?
Yeah,
They're studying
by
insects.
touch and by smell. Yeah, because they're studying insects.
Uh-huh.
And the teacher, and I forgot to write down his name, which actually annoys me.
I think it was Dr. Gregory.
Yeah, Dr. Gregory. He goes, what was Willow's last name? Rosenberg? Rosenberg. He's like, are there any more questions Rosenberg would like to answer? Because he knows.
It's like the son of a bitch could see behind him.
And, like...
He turns out to actually be a really cool dude.
And yeah, and that's what the point I was going to make is, like, at first you're like, oh, this teacher's an asshole.
Uh-huh.
But after the class clears out, he's talking to Buffy, and he's actually really fucking awesome.
Like, I wish I had a teacher that good in high school.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, yeah, your principal showed me your permanent record, but I don't care about that. I think you're really smart. I think you have a lot of potential.
Uh-huh.
And just do your homework and try. And I think you could really succeed. And he gives Buffy this beautiful little boost that she obviously needs.
That she actually needed. I was like, damn, that's good parenting.
And it's...
Like, this man is not getting paid enough.
And then he immediately dies.
Immediately. Yeah. The one good adult influence.
Like, I was so fucking angry about that.
Well, besides Giles, obviously.
Well, yeah.
Her mom's not
But
terrible.
Giles isn't, he doesn't build Buffy up necessarily. He lectures a little.
That's
he
true.
He pushes her. Yeah, and she needs that.
Uh-huh.
But this teacher actually is like, no, I think you just need to try a little harder. You're doing good.
And she's gotten so much shit over every episode before this, just like, oh, you burned down the school and you're causing trouble and you're gonna do it again. We're just waiting and watching because you're gonna fuck up. And he's like, let's make them eat that permanent record.
Yeah.
And I was like, thank you.
And it's such a, like, great moment where, like, his tone and everything, he's like, no, screw these people, Buffy.
Yeah.
You can be something awesome. And I wish I had teachers that were that good in high school. And I was so disappointed that he dies right away.
Immediately.
Like, she walks out of the room and then there's a thing that eats him immediately. Like, where was it hiding?
Inexplicable claw, just shink, and moving along.
And cut to title sequence.
That's life.
I do have to mention, we're 4 episodes in now.
Yeah, it is episode 4.
And I'm still not tired of the opening sequence, which is... I think that's a testament to the good music, because it is a good opening music.
Oh, yeah, the actual title sequence.
Yeah,
but
the actual, not the
dime store
Once
announcer.
a generation.
Once a generation, a slayer is born.
Exactly.
She plays with the
actual
ghouls.
Rock music title sequence.
Yeah.
And which still, like, fills me with a little spike of joy.
Yeah. Nostalgia.
So we open on the bronze.
Cut to the bronze. Got this jock dude. His name's Blaine.
So the cringe begins.
Immediately posturing over how many women they've supposedly slept with in exchange between Blaine and Xander. Yeah, exactly. You can just ad infinitum. I'm just going to loop that sound effect for any time we talk about Blaine or Xander, for that sake, in this entire fucking episode.
Every male, with the exception of Giles, in this entire fucking episode is awful.
If one of us is not groaning, the other should be.
It's
and not in a sexual way, you fucking perverts.
It's that very, like you said, quintessential, I've slept with so many women.
I nicknamed him Macho Cannon Fodder 2.0. He's the next Jesse.
He is the next Jesse.
Unfortunately, I'm sorry to report he survives the episode.
Hopefully he doesn't survive. If he comes back.
I don't think he's coming back.
I hope not.
We'll see.
But Angel shows up, and Xander is super fucking jealous. And
he uses his friends, Buffy and Willow, to try and impress this fucking guy that he has no relationship to.
And of course, Willow's
Willow's
gung-ho for it.
Yeah, she's like, oh, we'll show
because
him.
She really wants Xander.
Right.
And it's very obvious, especially through this episode.
And Buffy's confused, nevertheless vaguely conciliatory.
Yep. And then before the awkwardness could set in, Angel shows up, and Xander's super jealous of Angel, just like, oh, she never mentioned how Buffy was. Immediately, Buffy walks up to Angel, and she's like, oh, are you just going to show up and then give me a cryptic warning and then go away?
Oh, hell no.
And he's like, oh, no, and you look cold, and gives her his leather jacket.
Not before she misinterprets what he said. With good reason. She's like, oh, you can handle it. No, you actually look cold.
Oh, yeah, because he says, you're cold.
Yeah, and she said something shitty that, is good because, hey, creepy stalker dude, stop following me around.
He's creepy. He's creepy. But I do have to say, the dude's buff.
I mean, sometimes you just got to give a girl a coat. And it works. She's like, oh, my.
And he's got a cut on his arm. And he's hinting at some badass vampire, and finally mentions the master, which thank God someone has at this point.
Right?
And then he gives her a cryptic warning and he leaves. And it's just hilarious because that's what she expected him to do.
And insert plot complication here. So after
that, we need all the distractions from the actual story that we can get.
Hey, got your steak. Hey, got your steak.
So then what?
So the next morning, we get Giles and Buffy walking, and Buffy's relaying the messages of what Angel said to Giles.
Oh yeah, we get our little library powwow.
Yep. Which isn't actually in the library for once. It's outside the school.
Okay.
Giles gives this really good line that is completely bulldozed over by the actual scene. It's just that nice little, like, under his breath line where he's like, maybe you just have too many guys.
Yeah, I did not hear Giles talking when he said that. I heard Anthony Stewart Head talking when he said that.
Right.
He did not sound at all in character.
No, it was very criticism of the show there.
It was like somebody yelled "cut" and he kept talking. I have to mention guys in your life.
I have to mention, she's still wearing Angel's coat, and she's wearing it. She's wearing it pretty much the rest of the episode.
He could have left a tracker in that,
and he's creepy and stalkerish. He probably has.
I don't know. He's fucking pretty.
So we get back to the cringe.
So what did they decide in that conversation though? What
I don't remember because immediately after that conversation comes to a close, I'm distracted because up walks super sexy teacher.
Oh, that's right.
And
they figure out that Dr. Gregory's missing. And
Yep.
they're going to have a substitute.
Yep. And then in walks the substitute, Miss French.
Miss French.
And Miss French is a super hottie and hitting on Xander and
Immediately.
Immediately.
Doesn't even make it inside to check in at the main office. She's not a regular teacher
and she's
there.
like, where is Science 109?
Yep.
And what douche canoe steps up
Blaine.
and he's like, I can show you, I'm headed there right now.
It's not far from the field
God.
where I took All City in the specific year when I took All City. Insert here. And it's like, really?
Here.
You weren't even close enough to hear the question she asked.
Here, let me show you my penis. That is exactly what they're saying.
This is
Here,
what-
let me show you my penis.
This is what men did before they could text dick pics.
apparently yes. It's fucking awful.
God.
And then in class, like everything the teacher says, Blaine is like, sexist comment here, sexist comment here, sexist comment
I'll
here.
tell you where I want you.
Oh,
Excuse
God,
me, what?
It's so bad. I couldn't even pay attention to what the fuck was going on in the scene because it's just so awful.
Yeah, I glazed over so much. Like, the next note I even wrote down doesn't even have anything to do with the science lab or Miss French. It's not until Buffy's in the park. So apparently, I think she has another scene
because they
with Giles.
well after
Or where she
after
tells him-
this, after introducing Miss French and everything, they're in the cafeteria and they've Cordelia finds the teacher's body, who's headless in the freezer.
Yep.
Couple of things. First off, we're like mid-lunch.
Yep.
No one's opened that fucking thing at all day.
Yeah.
No one has opened that refrigerator all day.
And Cordelia has the most bullshit excuse to open that.
Because she has a doctor's prescribed lunch.
Since when would they still let a student walk behind the counter?
On top of that, was the doctor prescribed lunch put in the freezer with the body there and just no one noticed?
Yeah.
Like, how does the body only just now get discovered?
He's been there since yesterday.
They do this amazing thing to have him headless. Basically, his body is standing in the freezer.
Yeah.
But it's obvious that they cut a hole in the top of the freezer where his head is actually like in a hole.
I'm not even sure they needed to do that. I think they just cut the frame off at his neck.
But he's like standing there stiff as a board.
It's like, how is he even...
And the second part I have
Rigor
about this,
mortis?
if the creature that ate him or ate his head or whatever, as we learn later, why did it take the body and hide it in the cafeteria?
Yeah.
Like, there are a lot of places you could hide a body.
Much
and that
better places.
seems like a bad idea.
And they established later she's like 90 years old.
Yeah, the creature...
She should have a better plan
Yeah.
worked out. No wonder she needs to steal substitute teachers' identities to eat science teachers. It's like, not
Oh
just...
my God.
There were plenty of bums in the park, but she had to pick a high-profile, well-liked, and immediately missed public figure.
But there, we
mentioned a few episodes ago how good of a writer Joss Whedon is. Somebody had some growing to do.
The dialogue is still good.
Yeah. I'll go with that.
Aside from that, though,
You gonna back that one up, Rex? That's okay.
there are still some good dialogue moments in this episode.
Plenty of other things to attack anyway.
So immediately from finding the teacher's body, they cut to the library.
Now this is after Miss French has taught her first
yes.
lesson, right?
Yeah.
In which she immediately launches into talking about praying mantises. It's like they were talking about ants the day before.
Yeah.
And the episode before that, they were dissecting frogs. She specifically picks the praying mantis and just clearly has a big old
That's not telling her anything.
lady boner for praying mantises.
So we cut back to the library, and then we get a line that I love.
My lump, my lovely lady lump.
Stop that.
I will not.
No, don't do that.
She had a lovely lady lump for praying mantises.
I will say that the woman they cast as Miss French is quite attractive.
Very attractive lady. Let's glorify some
But
pedophilic teacher-student
Yeah.
romances.
It's hard for me to say anything cool or witty or at all. I can usually make a few vowel sounds and then I have to go away.
I don't mean to interrupt your downward mobility.
Yeah, you're the Slayer
I
and
just wanted to
we're
tell
like the Slayerettes.
Oh, please.
from finding the body, we cut to the library immediately.
Library.
And the library.
The library.
Giles is like, here, Buffy, drink this, and hands Buffy a glass of water, and she's like, no, thank you, and then takes a drink. I thought that was fucking hilarious.
I didn't notice that she said no thank you.
She said no thank you, took the glass, and numbly takes a drink, and plays off being just completely numb to like what happened very well. There's again, they talk about the vampire that Angel mentioned. They hint at the big the season plot, which is really nice because the last episode they didn't fucking talk about it at all.
At all.
And so it's nice to know that
He called him the Vampire King. I appreciated
notice that.
He did.
Well,
the
it
master.
fits. It
We're
fits.
referring to the master.
it fits.
It does.
So from there, well, Buffy first tells Giles that she's not going to patrol, which why Giles doesn't want her to patrol is fucking stupid. She's the fucking vampire slayer. There's a vampire running around.
Yeah.
She should go kill the vampire.
Now, before you do anything rash, Buffy, we need to know more about this, see?
It's a vampire. You stab it with a stake. But she goes anyway, and holy shit, the park is filled with homeless people.
Filled.
She's literally tripping over the
The
homeless people.
city is covered in the ejaculate of the homeless.
I don't think they were ejaculating.
Just a shout out to Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Oh, I have not seen that show.
Alrighty then.
I have not seen that show.
Anyway, no, the first bum's entrance, he's like, what are you doing here, little lady? It's dangerous. And I was like, ooh, he gonna die. First of all, I've never met a homeless person that nice. Second of all, it was like, thanks, John Wayne. Well, hey there, little lady. Just as much of an alcoholic, less revered by the public.
He did have an alcohol beverage in his hand.
He did. Well, it was in a paper bag. You don't know.
You are correct.
He was being
Technically-
perfectly legal about
Technically
it.
speaking, I do not know.
You fucking ableist.
So we get to see.
Maybe he was camping.
We get to see the vampire that Angel gives his cryptic damn, I can't say that word.
Onomatopoeia.
Ominous message about.
Ominous onomatopoeia.
Fuck you. Fuck your acting degree.
No.
We get to see the vampire that Angel warned about, and he's not that scary.
This fucking guy
He has a fucking rake thing on his hand.
pops out of a tree. He's like Freddy Krueger's bastard son.
And he runs off. Buffy chases him. He hops over a fence, and there's a woman walking down the street
Hold
that
on.
happens.
Hold on. Did you notice the police were chasing him?
I did not actually.
And they were like, police, stop. And it was some dude wearing the stupidest hat with like a gang of civilians behind
Okay,
him.
yeah, I do remember this. And the thing I remember is the vampire ran away from the police.
From the police who looked
Why?
like... I was like, is this Andy Griffith? Where did they get these police? No wonder Buffy is the only one doing anything about this city.
So
Jesus
she chases
Christ.
the vampire, and he hops over a fence, and he attacks a woman walking down the street with her groceries, and it happens to be Miss French.
Miss French.
The second she turns around, he gets scared and runs away, and
Yep.
Buffy sees this. And so she now suspects something is weird with Miss French
As
because
she should.
Yeah, because bitch scared away a vampire. They're not even afraid of the Slayer, who's like genetically designed to murder them.
Yeah. They all get super cocky about that. They're just like, hey, a Slayer. I haven't killed a Slayer since yesterday's dinner.
So Buffy goes the next day to talk to Giles about it. Giles, of course, is a little miffed that she went out without his permission to, patrol.
How dare she?
Which we've covered.
Yep.
It's dumb. But then we get to a quote that I love. Buffy says, "I'm an undead monster that can shave with my hand. How many things am I afraid of?"
In reference to her being scared of Miss French.
Yeah.
Which had Giles concerned.
Definitely.
Reasonably so.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So they said, well, I suppose we better keep an eye on Miss French then.
Yeah, pretty much. And Buffy's like, well, I better get to class then. I'm going to go to class.
Pretty much. And she runs out.
And on her way to class, in walks
Principal Cockblock, a.k.a. in this scene, Mr. Bean. Like the tie, suit, and also just the particular angle that you're looking at him. He looks exactly like a plump version of Mr. Bean.
You said you wrote down... He had a lot to say.
He did. He was surprisingly caring. Like, I stopped hating him for just a moment.
I didn't. Because he's not sincere about any of the shit he's saying
right.
here.
It's basically, oh my God, we're going to get so sued.
Don't sue the school.
He's convincing Buffy to go to counseling because she saw the dead body and clearly she automatically must be traumatized, which would be true for pretty much any other student on the planet.
That is not, genetically engineered to be, a vampire slayer.
Except for Cordelia, who's just a sociopath. But before we get to that, he says, you saw the body. She said, he was, don't say the word dead, decapitated, decomposing. Just stay away from D words in general. And I was like, I can think of a D word right now. Mr. Principal.
He's a very big D word.
So he's like, yes, you're going to be, but I'm going to be late for science class. Like she cares, first of all. Well, actually, she does.
Well, yeah, because she's trying to go, watch
keep an eye on Miss French. So he walks her to counseling where he specifically says, yes, you're going to be very late for science class. Yes, you're going to be very late. And he forces her to go sit outside the counseling room where Cordelia is being counseled.
Oh my God.
This is how we know she's a sociopath.
Hold on.
Right here.
All I have to say is the first thing I wrote in my notes for this scene was, Jesus Christ, Cordy. Because
hold on.
Holy shit. Like, she's just rambling on about this.
Yeah. But before we'll come back to that. Another awesome moment with Principal Cockblock. He had an actual quote, not just the dead, decapitated, decomposing D word. He said, "We all need help with our feelings. Otherwise, we bottle them up, and before we know it, powerful laxatives are involved." And I was like, that's the most insightful thing you've said since this show started.
Extremely. And then immediately we get to witness Cordy talking to the counselor, and she has a line that is just amazing.
I find it difficult to hate her in this moment.
I don't remember what her lead up to the quote was, but the quote itself is, "On the bright side, used Mercedes still come with leather seats."
Well, she's like, well, I'm not saying that...
Oh, right, because she's like, I lost like 3 ounces.
I'm not saying we should murder a teacher just so that I can lose weight, but we should take these bad points in time to look on the bright side. Like
how Mercedes come with leather seats.
Like how even a used Mercedes still has leather seats.
Oh, Cordy.
That's her analogy.
I've seen this series multiple times, and it never really dawned on me how just excellent Cordy is as...
At being so superficial. She is a professional, superficial person. Thing.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal because...
Frankly, I have leather seats, and those fucking things get hot in the summer. Like,
I hate leather furniture.
It's easy to clean, but...
I like leather jackets. It's all I like as far as leather.
Yeah.
Like, my computer chair is leather, and it pisses me off.
It's a fancy windbreaker. Anyway, so... And the look on Buffy's face as she's listening to Cordelia was priceless.
Oh, God. Yes, it was.
I can't describe it.
She was not remotely surprised by Cordy's
it wasn't even pure disgust. It was just, why am I being forced to listen to this?
The act of having to listen to Cordy in therapy was far more traumatizing than seeing the dead body.
It
to
was
Buffy.
like forcing a patient who is unable to move to watch Barney. That's the look on her face in that moment.
Definitely.
You mean besides me? No, I didn't ask. You mean besides me? Do you believe? I didn't ask. We have to achieve our dreams, otherwise we wither and die. We're going to the other cool place in Sunnydale.
So we cut to the class, and the way she is talking and the way she is giving significant looks to her students.
Severely unprofessional, first of all.
I wrote, if she's not a monster, she's a pedophile.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
It's so bad. Okay, I have to say this. There is no fucking way this episode would have ever aired today.
No.
Never.
No.
Never, ever, ever. Because Jesus Christ, this fucking female pedophile teacher is creepy as fuck.
Yeah.
And the sexist way that these fucking male students are just falling all over themselves.
Over it. Oh my shit.
It hurts to watch.
Yeah, they're like, motherfucker, I'm gonna get a notch on my belt with this bitch. Shit.
I expected some shit in this series about it not aging well and things like that. But I thought of things like when I went back and rewatched X-Files, how they're like picking up phones that are the size of a fucking brick, you know? Not just this
multiple bricks.
Oh my
Let's be
God,
honest.
this episode is
It's
the
like
epitome.
the walkie-talkies from Stranger Things, man.
Like we mentioned in the previous episode how, you know, there's so many moments of just before anyone was woke, so to speak.
Uh-huh.
But this episode really nails that one down.
It really does.
Oh, it's so painful. But Buffy finally gets back to class just in time to see Miss French 180 her head around.
Yeah.
Which, why the fuck would Miss French do that in the middle of class?
In the middle of class. Like, this was another instance of very poor editing, because you could tell that when Buffy got to the door, it looked clearly like Miss French had made eye contact with Buffy through the window. And then we cut to Buffy's point of view through the window, and Miss French does the 180 thing. It's like, wait, she was already looking at Buffy. Why did she need to 180? Oh, she wasn't looking at Buffy. She just sensed her from behind her.
Yeah, I don't...
It was bad. But so she runs back to Giles. She's like, oh my God, she must be a praying mantis. Because she 180'd her head.
Hold on, though. Buffy doesn't immediately know that she's a praying mantis.
No, she doesn't quite jump to that conclusion.
She does think that she's a bug of some sort.
Yeah.
Which, you know, kind of gives credit to Buffy in that she was listening to the previous teacher.
Well, there's a little bit of a line of logic that leads her to that. She's like, well, what could possibly do this? Giles is like, well, nothing human, which I'm surprised they didn't think of owls.
There are actually a number of just animals that can turn their head that way.
Mm-hmm.
Not just bugs, but, you know, prominently bugs. So Buffy...
But what actually led them to think that it was... Oh, that's right. So Giles has this moment. Is this where it happens? Or where Giles is like, well, when I was teaching at Oxford...
Yes.
I had a cohort teacher
who went crazy and he thought about this giant bug creature.
No, he just happened to be an entomologist and a mythologist, and those were his specialties. How convenient.
Very convenient.
And,
but he lost his mind.
And Buffy's like, what a mist is bugs and fairy tales. Oh, cool. Well, I'm going to go study bugs now.
And Giles is like, I'm going to make a transatlantic phone call. Which he does on the school phone Think about that.
Yeah.
He just charged that transatlantic phone call on the school phone.
That shit was expensive in the 90s.
So we do get this great moment where Buffy's like gung ho, I'm gonna study bugs, and walks up into the stacks of books and disappears, and then immediately comes back and she's like, where are the books on bugs? I don't know where books are.
And then Willow is like, okay, well, I'm gonna hack into the coroner's office because we need to figure out how Mr. Gregory died.
So this actually brings me to one of a Giles quote.
I got the same one.
Yep. Before that, we're jumping ahead.
What?
Before that,
That never happens.
We cut back to Miss French in class and Xander being his hormone-ridden self.
Yep.
And she's making a sandwich. And she has a Tupperware container. And she, apparently it's after school, and she invites him to her home.
Her first idea right out of the gate is, let's make some model eggs for the science project.
That's her bait to get these guys alone.
And then, of course, she's forgotten the materials. So if you could just... I've done a terrible thing, Xander. Would you be able to come over to my house tonight so we can work on that project?
Oh, God.
Hey-o.
It's so painful.
Yeah.
But
And
then
he's all about it.
Xander's, of course, tripping over himself, and he's like, yeah, I'll be there, and he leaves. And then I cracked up at this. She grabs this Tupperware container with a label that says food on it.
I didn't notice the label.
Who labels their, like... You label with what's in it, not just food.
Yeah.
This Tupperware container contains food.
Yeah, but it had crickets in it, so it would have made people suspicious if it said crickets.
Right. Why? Like, okay, if it said crickets, why would she label it?
She could have labeled it ham sandwich or something. She's clearly not above lying.
No. Oh, she's really bad at hiding, though.
Yeah, a little bit.
So then we get the sequence where Buffy comes out with a book, and she's learned all this shit about praying mantises. Which, I like this because it shows that Buffy's not a fucking moron. Like, she actually understands how to look information up and, like, absorb it and learn from it and so forth, on.
She can do her research.
And, like, that made me happy because before this bit, she kind of just follows them.
She was kind of just a blunt instrument.
Exactly. Like, oh, they'll do the research, I'll go kill the thing once you tell me what to do.
Yeah.
And
Meantime,
that is
I wanna be a
definitely
cheerleader.
not the case in this episode,
Yeah.
and I really approve of that. So this is when we get to hear the results of Willow's hacking into the coroner's office. Giles gives a great line where he's like, is that strictly legal? And
Both
course,
of them in unison. Oh, absolutely.
They're obviously lying. And he very deadpan says, all right, wasn't here, didn't see it, couldn't have stopped you if I wanted to.
That was also one of my quotes of the day.
And he just walks away to make his transatlantic phone call.
And so they're a little worried about Xander. They're like, oh no, I saw him earlier today. He must be fine and safe at home.
Well, Buffy runs into Xander in the hall, and Xander basically is like, what, Buffy, are you jealous now? Because this teacher has the hots for me.
Yeah.
Oh, God, I have never wanted to reach into a fucking TV and smack a character so hard.
I have, but this was definitely in the top of those moments.
And then they're, of course, like, oh, what's going to happen with Xander? Oh, but he went home. He's fine.
He's fine.
But they go there. He shows
an
up.
asshole, but he's fine.
Yeah.
There's a reason why you're here. The reason what's now. There's a reason why you're here. The reason what's now.
He shows up at her house for the date, and she's dressed to the nines. And he's at the door.
She's pouring martinis.
Oh, God.
Wearing this slim cut little piece.
Xander gets to the door, and she answers the door, and he is literally staring at her boobs the entire fucking scene.
Which, is par for the course and relevant to where the episode's been going.
And she immediately is like, do you want some alcohol, Mr. Underage Kid?
Yeah, Mr. fucking 16-year-old.
Have a martini.
Yeah. And then basically bullies him, emotionally browbeats him into taking this drink. And he just guzzles it in one shot. And I'm like, you've probably never drank in your life. And you just guzzled a martini.
Yeah, and
I'm a seasoned drinker, and martinis are still disgusting to me.
I actually like them, but you fucking sip that shit.
Yeah.
It's all alcohol.
Also, here's my question. So he gets a bit woozy shortly after, and he's like, so that's a martini, huh?
She definitely roofied him.
See, this is my question. She clearly, in the establishing shot of this scene, poured her drink and his drink from the exact same container.
And she does take a sip of hers.
And they did not establish her poisoning his drink. So my question is, there's two options here. Was he just such a lightweight because he's never drank before? Or was it not a martini and it was just something that she could tolerate because she's not human?
That's possible. He wouldn't fucking know whether it's actually a martini.
Yeah, it was probably some sort of mutant praying mantis hormone enhancer thing that also makes him pass out.
Who knows?
Who knows? It had olives in it, and it was in a martini glass.
And it's date rape.
Yeah.
It's fucking date rape.
One way or another.
But there is a great line in right before Xander passes out. He looks at her hands, and we see a horrible transition green screen effect where her hands turn into Mantis hands.
She's like, yo, your hands are so hot. And I honestly couldn't tell. Did she mean sexy?
I have no idea.
Or temperature?
I have no idea.
And he gave him this flashback to the opening scene of his fantasy with Buffy.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, your hand, is it okay?
And then he's like, I like Buffy.
You guys are stretching at
and
this
then
point.
he looks at her hand and he's like, your hands are so serrated.
Serrated.
And then he passes out.
And then she drags him down to her lair, her rape dungeon.
Then we're back to the library where Willow is obviously worried about Xander.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously like crushing hardcore on him because she's like, what about his cute face and all this shit?
But no, she can't eat his head. That's where like his eyes and his cute mouth are, and I like those. Oh, that poor girl. So Buffy's like, no, he's fine. But they still decide that they need to go find Miss French, and they're like, well, shit, let's just look up her address in the registry.
Yeah, which is a decent idea.
Yeah.
And
then I'm like, what are the odds?
Basically, they figure out that the number one way to kill this thing would be to, just cut it up.
Yeah.
And Buffy gets the brilliant idea of recording the sound of bat sonar.
Bat sonar.
Which is a brilliant move on her part.
It is,
and
actually.
No one else thought of it.
It just kind of...
Major kudos to her.
Yep. It's like, just so that we're prepared, we need some bat sonar. Even Giles is like, where do I get bat sonar? In the vid library. There's no books, but it's dark and musty. You'll be right at home. And...
Another great quote.
Yeah. So
they set off to go find Mrs. French.
We're off to find the praying mantis substitute teacher.
They go to her house and they discover that, Miss French is an imposter. The real Miss French, who's 90-some years old,
sweet old lady,
is an old lady. I do want to mention that the woman that they cast for Miss French is not 90 years old.
She was excellent, though.
She was.
I liked her.
I've seen her in some other stuff in small bits, and I think she's one of those like career small bit actors.
I don't think the human character needed to be 90 years old. They hadn't established that the persona of Natalie French was supposed to be 90 years old. It was only that the monster was 90 years old.
They don't really establish it either way well. So it's left kind of ambiguous of whether or not it's the teacher or the creature that's that old.
Yeah. Unimportant,
but basically, Miss French retired in the 70s.
Yeah.
And so they're like, well, shit, what do we do now? How do we find...
And I just want to point out how endearing it was that they were suddenly talking about this lady like she didn't exist. And she was like, no, I'm right here. And that was cute.
Small bit part, excellently well done.
Yeah. There are no small roles, only small actors. And I loved that little old lady. She was fun. Anyway, so they have to find the house.
And Buffy gets the brilliant idea of capturing the clawed vampire.
The fork vampire. And using him like a drug dog.
And it's... I just have to say, the thing that jumped out at me about this is a dude that, like, Angel was, like, ominously warning her about. And she just, like, goes into the sewers like, okay, I got him.
Angel's kind of a wuss.
Angel is a wuss.
Honestly.
Like... Angel, you need to recalibrate your threat assessment.
He scratched my arm. I don't know if I can do this anymore, Buffy. I need your help. Oh, God.
So they find Miss French's house.
They just kind of pointed him down half a block, and he's like, "Rrr, rrr, 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 not that house." She's like, "Oh, that house, huh?" And then there's this little, very conveniently placed white picket fence. Like a mini garden picket fence.
Yep.
And I was like, gee, I wonder if he's going to get stabbed in the heart with that. And indeed she does break off a piece of it. And she just kind of throws it at him.
Right. I want to point something out here that I have noticed. I haven't seen a single fucking vampire in the entirety of the series yet who actually got stabbed where the fucking heart is. Like
this guy got stabbed in the
vampire
armpit.
in the opening dream sequence is like stabbed in the fucking kidney practically. And this one isn't stabbed anywhere near the heart.
Yeah.
At least you should know where the heart is, people.
And this one's not even Xander's fantasy, and we're still robbed of a dust puff.
Yeah.
Death.
I think they
were low on funds.
Used all of their budget for the fucking
Yes.
praying mantis, which actually didn't look bad.
It wasn't the most awful thing I've ever seen.
It didn't age well, but for the time that this came out, that was pretty damn decent.
Yeah, you know
Especially
what?
for a fairly lower budget TV show.
It's hard for me to say anything cool or witty or at all. I can usually make a few vowel sounds and then I have to go away.
I don't mean to interrupt your downward mobility.
Yeah, you're the Slayer
I
and
just wanted to
we're
tell
like the Slayerettes.
Oh, please.
So we cut back to the basement with Xander and Blaine. They're stuck in the cages, and we see Blaine in a not douchey light for just a moment. He's scared.
A very brief moment. It does not last.
He's vulnerable. He's still a dick, but, you know, he doesn't deserve to be eaten. And he's very gruesomely and vividly describing what the monster is about to do to them. One of them.
Oh, man.
She shoots eggs at you, and then she mates with you, and it's awful.
And then she eats your head.
And I just want to point out, I thought it was very nice that she at least laid down some hay in their cages for them. So just in case they needed to pee a little, it would soak it up a bit. Not that she's any stranger to, you know, mucusy,
definitely
gooey
not.
substances. But anyway, so this monster costume, it's not terrible at first, and then I find myself flashbacking to that episode of original Star Trek with William Shatner where he's fighting the lizard monster. And I'm just like, wow, 30 years later.
I don't think it's that bad.
30 years later, and we're still doing this.
I don't think it's that bad. They did have at least enough wherewithal to keep it mostly in shadow.
Yeah,
so that helped.
They kept the shots chopped up enough so that we didn't see any of the fabric of the costume wrinkling.
There is the moment where Xander is chained up and kind of like hanging there, and the mantis is right in his face, and it's a little too long on screen, and that's a moment where you're like, that's kind of not a great costume.
And then one of my quotes of the day coming from Blaine, which everything else about him, I wanted to punch him in the face more than I wanted to punch Xander. But he's got the praying mantis, what's her name? Miss French, Natalie French, right in front of his face with all of her slappy doodly tendrils just licking his face. And he's like, can I just say one thing? Help! And Blaine says, how do you want your eggs, bro? Over easy or sunny side up? And I was like, oh, too soon.
Way too soon.
You sick fuck.
So Buffy and the gang bust into the basement, and Buffy pulls out weaponry and pulls out fucking bug spray.
Bug spray.
I started cracking up
Once
at this
again,
point.
30 years later, and it's still just as bad as original Batman with his
Shark
goddamn
repellent.
shark repellent.
And then it's just great. She very dramatically is like, and you know something I know you hate, and like pulls out the tape recorder and presses play, and we get to hear some inane recording that Giles has made talking about books, and he's like, no, that's the wrong side.
No, it's on the wrong side, Buffy. Oh, damn.
Why did the tape get flipped, by the way?
Well, they just put it in wrong in the first place. Kudos to Giles to actually coming with her on a hunt for a change.
Definitely.
Logging some field hours. Good for them.
So she does give a great fucking line here. After she plays this recording, Buffy says, makes your whole nervous system go to hell, doesn't it? You can go with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I really love that. So she slices up the monster.
Yeah. But not after nonchalantly shoving away Xander. Like, she doesn't say, get back, let me handle this. She's just kind of looks back and forth between the two of them and then goes, and he's just like, what? I was trying to help. He doesn't say anything. It's all nonverbal. He was trying to spray her with the bug spray. It's just the most awkward, clunky portion of the
really
fight scene.
is. It really is. And then, but Buffy makes quick work of Miss French, chops up the bad guy.
Yeah, whips
and
out a nice
then
machete.
we get a horrible scene because
Go
they're talking to Xander and Blaine, and Willow is like, it's so horrible that she was, preying on you boys who were making good decisions and not having sex. And their response is like, we're not virgins. I don't know what you're talking about.
My dad's a lawyer, and if another word of this is mentioned, I'll sue the shit out of you.
Because being a virgin is so bad.
In high school at the age of 16.
Oh my
Just
God.
the taboo and the general acceptance. Like, I'm sure nobody even questioned this at the time. Just like, being a virgin, it's like you're not a man until you've...
Yeah, it's fucking awful. And then Xander chops up the eggs. He gets his redemption slightly in, destroying what's left. And then we cut back to the bronze, where Buffy is sitting alone at the bronze. And Angel shows up.
Broody time.
Yes, broody time to meet with Buffy. I don't know if, he just stalked her there, probably.
I mean, where else would he go?
I mean, obviously there's nowhere else to go in this small-ass town.
Seriously, he doesn't actually do anything.
No.
He just lets her do all the work.
They definitely wrote her interactions in this episode like she definitely has a crush on Angel.
Oh, absolutely.
And it shows better in this episode than it has yet.
Uh-huh.
And there's actual chemistry there for once, which is a nice fucking change. He's basically commending her for doing quick work on the clawed vampire. she's like, oh, here, you should take your coat. And he's like, oh, it looks better on you anyway.
Uh-huh. And she's like, oh, God.
But the line works on her. She has that little smirk on her face, and he leaves.
Lets herself melt to him a little bit.
But we close on kind of sad face Buffy.
Yeah.
Because, oh, he's leaving already.
Whatever. Cut back to the science room. So we have a new science teacher. Droll as
oh
fuck.
my God.
You will do exactly 6 pages. No more, no less. It'll count as 1/3 of your grade. No more, no less.
And Buffy picks up... the class is dismissed. Buffy picks up the glasses for the old teacher, which are for some reason still there. No one has collected any of his stuff. His coat and
no
everything
personal
is still
effects.
there.
The man has no family. Apparently, she did her research. This man will not be missed.
Apparently. Apparently. But Buffy sees the glasses and she misses the good teacher. And then we get
Pan down
to some eggs that were left over in the locker room.
And one of them starts hatching.
And here's the thing. If anyone had taken care of the fucker's personal effects, they'd have found the eggs.
They'd have found some fucking eggs. Big ones. And
this is not the first time that that Sunnydale School has been shown to be just fucking inept.
Completely incompetent.
Episode 1, we get someone dying and, like, the cops aren't called. Like, cheerleader
How many
gets
people
set
have
on
died
fire
at this school in
Like-
just like a 2 or like a month span?
A
Too many.
lot. And they actually talk about that later in the series that that there's a high rate of like missing persons in Sunnydale and whatnot. And so like apparently the officials in the high school are like, hey, that's par for the course. Another person disappeared. Oh well.
I mean, we saw their police force.
Not great.
They need the help. And it was like the exact same ending as the last episode with the witches. Like, oh, look, here's this complete cliffhanger that we could totally come back to.
And they never
but
do.
never do.
Is this from me? I must be ready. I need my strength. Give me more! Night, I shall walk the earth. Hold on. You've got something in your eye.
So Josh, what's your favorite quote of the day?
My favorite quote of the day, probably, man, there were a couple of good ones. So it's between Blaine, Giles, Principal Cockblock, and Xander.
He did have some good ones.
I never mentioned that first one from Xander because, frankly, it wasn't very good. As funny as I find Blaine's quote, "How do you like your eggs, bro? Over easy or sunny side up?"
That is a really good one.
I still think there's more merit to Principal Cockblock saying, we all need help with our feelings, otherwise we bottle them up and before we know it, powerful laxatives are involved. Because that couldn't be more true and almost just as funny.
Oh, man. And it's a poop joke. And poop jokes always pay off.
And you know what? This character's going to be dead pretty soon, so we don't even... He's not... Let's just give him credit where credit's due.
Yeah. And, like, the whole scene that he is in this episode is gold.
Yeah.
It's just fucking gold.
Yeah.
Like, when I was watching it, like, I'm sitting there, I'm like, damn, I kind of want to rewind and write down this entire fucking bit that he does.
It was pretty good.
I have to say that my quote of the day is the deadpan... Wasn't here, didn't see it, couldn't have stopped you if I wanted to.
I liked that one too. I respect that.
It was a combination of Giles being like, what you're doing is necessary for us to continue on, but it's still wrong, but we still need to do it.
I recognize that legally wrong is not the same as morally wrong, and he establishes himself as a strong ally.
Right. On top of that, the way he says it, he has said it before. This is a thing that he has said before. Like, because Buffy looks at him and he goes, right, wasn't here, couldn't have stopped you if I wanted to. And it just, like, it hints at more background story going on that we're not seeing, and I love any time that we get that kind of hint that it's an actual world that they're living in.
Yeah, it's almost like rule number 1, keep your stories straight.
Exactly.
The Popo is the enemy.
So, did you like this episode?
You know, that question is starting to become pretty relative to me. Relative to the last episode, it definitely had more substance. Relative to what I know is coming, it was still fucking garbage.
Oh my
Relative
God.
to how it aged, it's still fucking garbage.
Oh, it's fucking awful.
So,
dude, like, I watch a lot of nostalgic shit.
yeah.
And so I'm accustomed to watching something and be like, oh God, that's a bad moment.
Yeah.
But Jesus Christ.
I have to say, if this answers your question as to how I felt about the episode, I came out of this episode with one tidbit of knowledge or wisdom, if you will, and that is science teachers are expendable. Those motherfuckers just come out of the woodwork.
Apparently.
They're not difficult to find.
Oh my God. I haven't cringed this much in a while. I gotta say at this point, 4 episodes into this, if I didn't already know that this gets good,
Oh, yeah.
I would stop watching.
We'd be done.
I don't know how this show made it through 1 season. Like, the sexism about the way... Like, granted, I know that this character, this monster, is playing off as being super sexy and whatnot. And that, fine, I get that.
Yeah.
But the response that the male characters have to her is so fucking bad.
And it's clear that we're intended to not question that.
Exactly.
Like, that part is supposed to be taken completely
we're supposed
for
to
granted.
respond with that as, oh, that's exactly how I would respond.
Absolutely.
And it's.
Did you ever see Dawson's Creek? Everybody was rooting for Dawson.
God.
Yeah.
Oh, God. That's a bad show.
Yeah, don't get me started.
And I watched that when I was that age.
So, wrapping up with knowing that Rex has watched Dawson's Creek, and unfortunately, so have I. Not in its entirety, I'm proud to announce.
I wish I could say that.
Has been another episode of Beer with Buffy, and in my opinion, one of the better ones. Even though we ran a bit long,
the worst episodes tend to have to
Rex.
have more to say.
go fuck yourself.
Go fuck yourself, Josh.
And we'll see you next time.
Good night.
You are the Slayer. Lives depend upon you. I make allowances for your years, but I expect a certain amount of responsibility, and instead of which you enslave yourself to this cult.
You don't like the color?
You have a sacred birthright. You were chosen to destroy vampires, not to wave pom-poms at people.
Why can't you people just leave me alone?
You are the Slayer.
Go ahead. Pim.
I'm a watcher. I haven't the skill.
Oh, come on.
By appealing to your common sense. Werewolves, incubi, succubi, everything you've ever dreaded was under your bed, but told yourself couldn't be by the light of day.
One gal in all the world.
Common sense.
One gal in all the
Common
world.
sense. Was a bit, British, wasn't it?
Wait, what have we done? Why are we watching this?